Perry Kouroumblis, who was arrested in September 2024 in Rome, Italy, in connection with the Easey Street murders, is a key figure in a case that had remained unsolved for nearly 50 years. The murders of Suzanne Armstrong and Susan Bartlett occurred on January 13, 1977 in Collingwood, Melbourne. Both women were found stabbed to death, and Armstrong's 16-month-old son, Riley, was found unharmed. Despite an initial investigation, the case went cold for decades. Kouroumblis was 17 years old at the time of the murders and lived just 350 metres from the crime scene. He was a student at Collingwood High School, where Susan Bartlett worked as a teacher. During the initial investigation, he was questioned by police after they found a knife in the trunk of his car. The case would remain unsolved for years, with Kouroumblis continuing his life in Melbourne and later moving to Greece. However, the breakthrough in the case came in 2017, when police were able to use advances in forensic technology to re-examine the evidence from the crime scene. A DNA match between Kouroumblis and material found at the scene connected him directly to the murders. The DNA evidence was pivotal in reopening the case, and the police began looking for him. But Kouroumblis had already fled the country. He had moved to Greece after police requested a DNA sample from him in 2017. From there, the investigation stalled for several years until 2024, when Kouroumblis was tracked to Rome, Italy. After the police in Italy received an Interpol red notice requesting his arrest, they were able to detain him at Rome's Fiumicino airport in September 2024. Upon his return to Australia, Kouroumblis was formally charged with 2 counts of murder and 1 count of rape. He maintains his innocence, but the DNA evidence linking him to the crime scene is the most significant piece of evidence. The initial investigation into the Easey Street murders did not point directly to Kouroumblis. However, he was questioned by police shortly after the murders, as he was living near the scene and had a connection to one of the victims. Susan Bartlett, one of the victims, was a teacher at Collingwood High School, where Kouroumblis was a student. This connection raised suspicions, but it was not enough to bring formal charges at the time. The major turning point in the investigation occurred with the use of DNA analysis. After the original investigation failed to identify a suspect, the case went cold, but the advancement of forensic technology allowed investigators to test evidence that was previously not usable. In 2017, detectives began to reanalyze the physical evidence, including DNA samples that had been collected from the crime scene but never properly tested. When the new DNA techniques were applied, investigators were able to match Kouroumblis' DNA to biological material recovered from the crime scene. This match was significant, as it was the first concrete evidence linking Kouroumblis to the murders. Once the DNA match was confirmed, Kouroumblis became the primary suspect in the case. His fleeing to Greece raised red flags for investigators, and from there the police felt like they had their man. At this stage, the police are still investigating the motive behind the murders. The connection between Kouroumblis and Susan Bartlett, one of the victims, is particularly interesting, as she was his teacher at the time. While there is no direct evidence yet to suggest a personal conflict between the two, investigators have speculated that Kouroumblis may have harbored feelings of resentment or anger, which could have contributed to the brutal nature of the crime. However, the rape charge against Kouroumblis suggests that the crime could have been sexually motivated. The fact that 2 women were killed in the same location, both with multiple stab wounds, is indicative of a crime of extreme violence. It is possible that Kouroumblis targeted the women for reasons still unclear, and the police are working to determine whether there was a specific motive beyond what is currently known. There is also the possibility that Kouroumblis, as a young man at the time, may have been influenced by impulsive behavior or an inability to control violent tendencies. The fact that he was initially questioned by police, but not charged after the murders, may have contributed to him slipping through the cracks for decades. The fleeing the country after DNA samples were requested from him in 2017 suggests an attempt to avoid justice, further strengthening the theory that he might have had something to hide. After the DNA match in 2017, the police began making efforts to locate Kouroumblis, who had already left the country by that time. Interpol was contacted to assist in tracking his whereabouts, and an Interpol Red Notice was issued, which is a global request for the arrest of a person wanted for serious crimes. Kouroumblis was tracked to Greece, but he eventually moved to Italy, where he was arrested in September 2024. The arrest was the result of extensive international collaboration. Once the arrest took place, Australian police worked with Italian authorities to facilitate Kouroumblis' extradition back to Australia. In December 2024, Kouroumblis was flown back to Melbourne and charged with the two murders. The police investigation had spanned nearly 5 decades, and the collaboration between multiple countries was crucial in securing the arrest of a man who had evaded justice for so long. Australian authorities worked alongside Interpol and Italian police, ensuring that Kouroumblis was brought back to face charges for the Easey Street murders. Kouroumblis' arrest is a significant development in a case that had haunted Melbourne for decades. As of now, he is awaiting trial in Melbourne, where he faces charges of 2 counts of murder and 1 count of rape. While he has denied any involvement in the crimes, the DNA evidence remains a central element of the prosecution's case. The Easey Street murders case serves as an example of the power of modern forensic technology in solving cold cases. The DNA match and the international efforts to locate and apprehend Kouroumblis have led to a significant breakthrough. But many questions still remain, particularly regarding the motive behind the murders. As the case moves through the court system, the details will continue to unfold, and Kouroumblis will have the opportunity to present his defense.